respond held here, sir. I thank all the participant members who have gotten into good details of the budget, sought clarification, also critically described what has come through in the budget. But I'll take this opportunity to highlight some of the features and also very clearly speak about why this budget has prioritized on some things whilst explaining the doubts that the members have expressed. So we went in for a budget which would stand for continuity, which will be bringing in stability to the economy and predictability in taxation, and also a vision for India at 100. So the continuity point which is very critical at a stage when the economy is coming out of the pandemic, focused on growth. The last budget also, we had focused on growth because that's how we could get people out of the difficult situation that we had gone into because of the pandemic. And that growth focus continues in this budget as well. One other thing which continues with the growth focus is in order to attain the growth, we wanted to undertake public expenditure in building infrastructure for a modern India, 21st century India, and an India which is going towards India at 100. So there was a philosophy or a guiding principle of PM Gati Shakti, which was put in as one of the ways in which the infrastructure spending from the public hands would be guided. That guidance which comes from the PM Gati Shakti was essentially because we needed to bring in greater synergy. We wanted to bring in greater complementarity between the various infrastructure spending that we are undertaking, because it's not to say that infrastructure spending has never happened in this country. It has happened. But what we find over the decades, that each project by itself, standalone in its nature, hadn't given the benefit or the multiplier which such an investment should have given us. So you brought in a manufacturing zone, or you built a road somewhere, a highway somewhere, but unfortunately the synergy which had to come through hadn't come through, or partly came through, but actually maximization was not possible. And therefore we thought, if there is a greater synergy between all these public expended infrastructure projects that are being created, it should be to the point of maximizing the outcome of such infrastructure which is getting built, at least in the forthcoming 25 years, the Amrit Kal that we talk about, leading India towards 100. And therefore the Gati Shakti guiding us for building infrastructure all across the country, being the focus and the continuity from last year on infra as an instrument for giving the stimulus to the economy. So I said the budget aims at continuity. The continuity is in giving the stimulus through public expenditure. We also wanted to underline the stability and sustainable recovery that we so need now. At a time when the economy has to grow and grow at a good pace, it is important for the economy also to be stabilized. The sustainable growth is what is going to ensure that India remains on the top, and unless that level of growth is maintained, we are not going to be having the trickle-down effect of the economy and the benefits of the economy reaching the poorest of the poor. So stable and sustainable recovery was one of the important motives and objectives of this budget, for having been drawn it the way we have drawn it. Policy prescription for it had already been given in the last budget. Again, the continuity principle guides us even in that, so that disinvestment or privatization or ease of doing business, and also adapting technology in all our fields of governance, whether it is digital, getting good access to the remote areas, whether it is digital related to financial inclusion, whether it is digital inclusion for the sake of medical and health facilities, and digital for also education. So that technology and digital adaptation are also the instruments through which we want to work during this Amrit Kal, so that India at 100 would have the lead advantage which many countries are just starting to do. We would be leading in that field of digital technology and technology adaptation, leading to better transparency in governance and accountability also. These are two very important, other than the fact that it is easing common man's financial inclusion process or education or health related matters. It also shows in a very transparent manner how governance takes place in this country. So technology for the sake of all these benefits are also being prioritized in this budget. One example of that is bringing in drone as a instrument or as a very effective tool for improving and modernizing India's agriculture. Now, when you bring in drone, it has got several adaptations. Some members, Amar Patnaik and others, spoke about what are we doing about agriculture. By bringing in drone, we are able to bring in efficiencies in the use of fertilizers, in the use of pesticides, and also making a good technology-driven assessment of the crop density, and also possibly predicting the output, the size of the output. Also to get the contours of the field and so on. The drone technology today also has the potential for our rural youth to get into this field, for which we have given a training, skilling program, which will run for a few years when people can become adept at using drone technologies, so that our agriculture can benefit from such a development. Startups are being encouraged. We saw that nowhere else in the globe, the robust way in which startups are coming out in this country. 5 of them have now come between 2021 as unicorns. They've benefited because access to funds are made easy in India. India's own funds, PE funds and VCs, are now able to support them, and therefore a lot of youth who believe in innovation, who have ideas, who can create employment, who are able to give instant solutions for our legacy problems, whether it is housing, whether it is laying of roads, whether in storage of grains, such critical ideas with which they are now contributing to the economy and bringing in a newer signature to the Indian economy are being supported in this budget as well as last, and the last year's support to the startups have shown tangible results for all of us to see. And in that sense, even this budget therefore also announces a committee, high-level committee to be formed for understanding how best we can have more resources within India through the PEs and also venture capital funds for enabling more such funding of startups and other business ventures, which will be for our own youth, for our own monies, and for our own economy to speed up in terms of achieving higher growth. So the budget, sir, actually speaks of stability. It continues some of the policies of last year, and that policy will guide us towards next 25 years. We will see modern infrastructure. I didn't think I said anything which is going to amuse any one of us, sir. India's 25 years, the coming 25 years are going to be important. No wonder we are calling it as Amrit Kal. And these 25 years, if there is no vision...
Please.
If we do not have a vision for India at 100, sir, we will suffer similarly as was the first 70 years when 65 years were with the Congress, which had no vision except for supporting, building and benefiting one family. Except for that, there was no vision in this country.
Please.
Sir,
Please. Please, बैठकर
So
पीछे
I'll
ना
come
बोलें,
about what
please.
Kal it is, sir. It is Amrit Kal, but I'll also explain a bit on it a bit later. If only our opposition members have a bit more patience, I'll make it interesting for them on that also. Sir, I had mentioned this earlier and I'd like to recall it again. The kind of hit that Indian economy took because of a global pandemic was not just for India, but for everybody else. Every other country suffered, but India suffered very much more, no doubt. And I would just very quickly recall that in 72-73, we had a 0.6% contraction in our economy due to the oil crisis, global oil crisis. 79-80, we had a 5.2% reduction, and that is also because of a war, Iran-Iraq war. Now, 2008-9 was the global financial crisis, as a result of which there was again a contraction. The latest one, which is 2021, contraction, but by minus 6.6, is one of the biggest contraction Indian economy has had to go through. And there is no memory or there is no comparison between this kind of a contraction or anything else which happened earlier. So I may not be even able to give a comparable situation and say, how was it then and how is it now? However, the recent global financial crisis, which is a very important milestone for India, as I read out, 4 important big global crisis triggered contraction in the Indian economy. The latest one is the 2008-9, other than the one in which we are just about to come out. That time, I just want to highlight the fact the contraction was only to the extent of 2.12 lakh crores. Contraction was only that much. It was a reduced gain, if I can be more accurate. Whereas now, the contraction is very big. 9.57 lakh crores is what is the loss in GDP that we had to suffer because of this pandemic. So this crisis is a big one. The loss to the GDP is much higher, whereas the loss to the GDP in 2008-9 was only to the extent of 2.12 lakh crores. But in spite of this, in spite of the supply side disruptions, India's CPI inflation now is at only 6.2%. I want to just highlight the fact that India's the inflation CPI, which is what is used for assessing the Mehngai, as we say in Hindi, is at 6.2. Whereas for a smaller contraction during the global financial crisis of only 2.12 reduction in gain, not a negative growth in that sense, reduction in gain. What was the CPI inflation then, sir, in 2008-9?
Please, please.
Sorry?
Please.
Sorry?
Please.
Because you're saying it, I'd rather benefit from your comment.
Please, please, आपस में. Please, आप.
Thank you.
Please, please. Please.
One should smile at it.
Thank you, Anand Sharma ji. Thank you very much. So, sir, for a reduction in gain of 2.12 lakh crores, the CPI inflation of that time was 9.1%, meaning inflation was at 9.1%, the CPI, for a reduction of only 2.12 lakh crores, which is big enough. Global financial crisis hit us. That was the reduction in gain. Whereas the pandemic hit us and the loss to the GDP was 9.57%, and our management of the inflation is that it is only 6.2%. I want to highlight this for the benefit of all our opposition respected members who periodically say, look at the inflation, look at the inflation. I want to say, lesser crisis, you couldn't handle the inflation. You led it to 9.1. We are taking care of it, and it is remaining at 6.1% only. And I agree, there are instances where we need to work more to get more pulses in the ground, more edible oils in the ground. We are working on it. But a smaller crisis you couldn't handle with very experienced finance ministers. And I was mocked at, saying, would you know anything at all? Leave me. Prime Minister Modi's consideration on how the economy should be, because he's an experienced chief minister and handled the entire affair at his own personal guidance. All of us have been working. So this is the result, sir, of only 6.1 now, whereas 9.1 for a smaller, relatively smaller problem.
Please, Mr. John.
I've admitted about that, John Birtas ji.
Please.
We know that ground level, if we need to do more, we shall be doing more. And thank you for reminding me that I have to go to the market. All right? Sir.
Please, John Birtas.
I want to highlight the fact that we chose to go through public expenditure on infrastructure building. Multiplier effect is what guided us on it. And I've said this before, revenue expenditure does not give you the required multiplier. Revenue expenditure of every 1 rupee gives you just 45 paisa worth of multiplier, and that too for that immediate specific period. Whereas for one period later, it gives us another additional 10 paisa more. So spending money through revenue does not give you the required multiplier, and the required multiplier being high is what is very critical for us now, because the economy has to revive and revive in a sustainable manner. Otherwise, it will have drops and rises. So we are doing that. So we chose not to go through the revenue expenditure route. So what does the capital expenditure give us? For every 1 rupee spent on capex, you get 2 rupees 45 paisa worth of multiplier in the immediate specific period, and for 1 period later, you get nearly 3 rupees 14 paisa worth of. That is, over time, you get 3 rupees 14 paisa worth of multiplier. It is a clear distinction between what gives you better multiplier, and therefore whether you want to go through the revenue route or whether you want to go through the capital route is so obviously before us, and therefore to sustain the growth, we had to choose spending through public capital expenditure. And that is why the money which has been given from 5.51 lakh crores, 5.54 lakh crores, we've gone to 7.50 lakh crores in this in this budget for capital expenditure for building infrastructure. So there was a small discussion on the figures given by the economic survey being very different from what it is in the government's budget speech. So it was raised, saying as an issue, the 8% number which has been given versus the 11% number, both nominal, the real being 8 and 11 being nominal, figures are given, and which is to be believed. Former finance minister, speaking about it in this house, said which one has got to be believed. I just want to highlight, sir, and I'm very grateful indeed to Dr. Narendra Jadhav, who pointedly went down to explain why that difference is there and what that difference explains for itself. And therefore, with that explanation already being given, I'm not getting into the details of it, but for the former finance minister to raise it as though there is something misleading is very disappointing. Because economic survey draws its source of information from one particular set of data. The government looks at advance estimates which come just before the budget and uses that data. And the advance estimate, it is true, could not take or could not imagine Omicron setting in. We have taken that also and factored it into the budget. And as a result, there are numbers which are slightly at variance with one another. So sources of calculation being different, obviously you will get numbers which to believe. And I'm sure in his tenure too.
Please, please. Veena Viswanath,
I'm
no,
sure.
not allowed. Not allowed. Please, no. Please,
I
you
am
continue
sure.
your speech. No.
I'm
Please, बैठ कर
sure.
पीछे ना बोले. Please.
Oh, thank you. That's very interesting. That's right.
He woke up just now.
So therefore, sir, the numbers, sources of data being different and also largely in the range of the numbers that all of us are talking about does not cause any sense of worry. And I'm sure economic surveys were prepared during his term as finance minister as well. And I don't think a dicto copy between finance ministry and economic survey, which is at an arm's distance, should also be aspired for. Opinions in economy do come from different sources. So long as they are diametrically not different, I think for us to raise doubts about its credibility is only attempting to mislead. So I leave it there. Sir, there were quite a number of members who spoke about various issues. I've clubbed them together on the head of the issue rather than by each member to go and answer every one of the questions. But I've grouped it all together. Like for instance, on unemployment. Many members spoke. Shri Ajit Kumar Bhuyan spoke. Sanjay Singh from Aam Aadmi Party spoke. Elamaram Karim ji spoke of CPM. Srimati Kanimori from DMK spoke. Dola Singh ji spoke from TMC. Kapil Sibal ji spoke. A.D. Singh ji spoke. Former Finance Minister Chidambaram ji spoke. So I've grouped it all together to address the issue of, say, unemployment so that I can speak about it. So the budget mentioned about different categories under which some employment is being created here, some somewhere else. But one big number which easily people picked it up and said that is the number, that is all that you're going to create, 60 lakhs is all that you're going to create. Sorry, I think what got missed out in that is PLI, which is being now given for 14 sectors. We are describing each PLI scheme which is being given for different sectors, and this one where we spoke about PLI, for the PLI-driven exercises, we said a 60 lakh number. That doesn't end the story there. There are various other steps that the government is taking aiming at improving employment. And I very clearly did also speak in a bit of an elaboration about how drones are also going to generate more employment in the rural area. It's actually showing results in many of the districts where it has already been adopted. So when also we are spending so much on infrastructure building, that cannot be without employment. Even that is going to be 7.5 lakh crores being spent for building public infrastructure is also going to be because there will be employment generated there. So the latest periodic labor force survey indicates that urban unemployment rate in January to March quarter of 21-22 has declined to pre-pandemic level of 9% after peaking at 20.8% of unemployment. It peaked there, but now it's already come down, is being established by this periodic labor force survey pertaining to the first quarter, January-March quarter of 21-22. So, unemployment issue is being addressed and unemployment numbers are coming down. November 2021, sir, saw a net addition, not just addition alone, forgetting the dropouts, net addition in the EPFO subscription to peaking at 13.9 lakh new subscribers, an increase of 109.21% over the previous year. And this is the highest ever achieved in, since 2017. So unemployment issue is got to be seen from the various different sources of information and sector-related information that we are getting. We shouldn't rush to think that 60 lakh crore which was given, 60 lakh which was given is all the jobs that is being created. Capital expenditure, I think I've partly explained. The issue of GDP number and the growth rate number being different, I've explained, which was also being raised by several members. Sir, there was this question on increased allocation to Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, claiming that that increase is purely for the sake of Central Vista. I just want to explain it, sir. Mahua's allocation, Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry's allocation, has been increased from 54,581 crores in the BE of 21-22 to 76,549 crore in 22-23. The increase is mainly on account of increased allocation in PM Awas Yojana Urban, enhanced from 8,000 crores to 28,000 crores, and not because of Central Vista. I just want to explain that. I think Honorable Member Chaya Verma had raised it. Honorable Member Jawahar Sirkar had raised it. Sir, again questions about Manrega. People who claim that Manrega is their own program and how can we not attribute it to them. I want to say, yes, there was, Manrega was designed, Manrega was passed, and Manrega was an act because of them. Very well. But I also would like to equally say Manrega's misuse was also due to them. CAG was also talking about misuse. And Manrega was infested. Manrega was infested with ghost accounts. People who did not exist were receiving money under Manrega. People who were not born were also...
Nothing is going on record your speech except Madam's speech. Please. Please, बैठ जाइए. बैठ जाइए, बैठ जाइए. बैठ जाइए.
Thank you, sir. Manrega was infested with ghost accounts, I repeat. Manrega had people whose names were written in who were not even born yet in this earth. So these were people who were receiving Manrega money. That's also to their credit, sir. So I will not hesitate to give credit where it is due, but take it all fully. Take the entire credit for the misuse of Manrega. Don't just take the name.
Please.
So, sir.
आपकी कोई बात रिकॉर्ड पे आप सबकी नहीं जा रही है. Please, सीट पर बैठ कर ना बोलें.
So, sir.
Please.
Sir, I just want to highlight Manrega is a demand-driven program. As and when there is demand. And also, sir, let's not forget, Manrega, even as it was born, was to provide that rural employment in lean seasons. Jairam Rameshji is here, who actually has spent a lot of time looking at Manrega, looking at rural development, and he'll vouch for this. Manrega was going to have to serve the rural unemployed, particularly in the lean season of agriculture. When agriculture activities are at its peak, it was safely assumed people will find jobs in the agricultural activity. And particularly in the drought-prone areas, when agricultural activity, unfortunately, because of climatic and other has become only annually one couple of months in an entire year of 12 months, it had confined itself to only those, rain-fed 3-4 months, 5 months, and so on. The rest of the year, people were remaining unemployed, and therefore, this what was brought in to bring in succor. And in that, therefore, whenever demand was going to come up, it was to be funded. That's exactly what we are doing. And therefore, to think that if you had not put it at the BE stage itself, and then you let them suffer, is entirely wrong. BE stage, we gave the money, and just see what happened during 2020-21, sir. The total monies given for Manrega crossed 1,11,000 crores. It was given by us. Therefore, it's one thing to create a scheme, it's one thing to misuse a scheme, whereas what we do now is create and use it properly and transparently. So, BE 73,000 crores is being given now with an understanding which all of us know that if the demand rises, we'll provide more through the supplementary demand for grants. So on Manrega, I think people who know it, people who want to have the claim for it, should not mislead by saying you're not giving anything now. We have given 73,000 and they know when the demand comes, we are bound to give, or else they are here to question me.
आप में से किसी की बात बैठकर जो बोल रहे हैं रिकॉर्ड पे नहीं जा रही, अननेसेसरली आप हल्ला कर रहे हैं. प्लीज 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 लेट हर स्पीक. माननीय लोपी, प्लीज प्लीज बैठकर ना बोले, कोई बात रिकॉर्ड पे नहीं जा रही, आप हाउस डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हैं. प्लीज
सर, सर,
शी इज नॉट कंसिडरिंग. लेट हर फिनिश, आई विल गिव यू.
सर,
if she is considering, please, point of order here.
38. And kindly look at to the unparliamentary expression, book page 272.
That we will see. That
I'm showing you, then I will leave it to
Yes.
you. I'm
Yes,
in
sir.
your hands.
Yeah, please.
First rule 238.
38, yes.
Now, rule 238, rules to be observed while speaking. Now kindly look at Roman 7.
238, Roman 7. Yes.
Under treasonable, seditious or defamative words.
Right.
Now, Honorable Deputies, Chairman Sir, kindly look at to the unparliamentary words. Page 272. Time and again, First Honorable Minister has said that former Finance Minister was misleading the House. Now again, Honorable Minister is saying the members speaking on Manrega misleading the House. Now, Honorable Sir, kindly see, not once, but many times, it is said that it's an unparliamentary word.
We'll
It's a
examine, Mr.
misleading.
Shakti Singh Goyal. You will examine it. We'll examine it. Thank you. Yes.
I wish
Please, we'll examine.
your honor may give me ruling on this.
We'll examine it and we'll
I
come
oblige.
back.
Irrelevant बात. Rule 240 is very clear. किसी भी सदस्य को irrelevant बात नहीं करनी चाहिए. जो Rule 238 है, उसका जो Section 5 है, वो person in high constitutional authority है. Former minister कोई high authority पे नहीं है. वो उसका explanation है. वो rule ही गलत उठा रहे irrelevant.
माननीय सदस्यगण, प्लीज 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 माननीय सदस्यगण, चेयर बार बार आप सबसे आग्रह करता है कि आप सब रूल्स को फॉलो करें, सभी लोग रूल्स को फॉलो करें. प्लीज माननीय मैडम, प्लीज 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 नो प्लीज माननीय मैडम.
Sir, allocation to health sector, sir. Questions were raised. Rajamani Patel ji, Kanimuri ji, Kapil Sibal ji, Amar Patnaik ji all questioned whether health sector is getting adequate funds. I'll just very quickly give you a picture. 2019-20, we had given 64,000 crores. In 2021, 80,000, 26 crores, 85,950 in the RE. That 80,000 became 85,915 in the RE of 21-22, the year that we are in, which we'll finish on 31st March. And 22-23, the budget which is before this House, gives 86,606 crores, sir. So it's going up and not coming down. Then there are issues, there are points which are also got to be drawn attention of this House. Expenditure on COVID-related health preparedness has received 12,000 crore in 2020-21, more than 15,000 crore in 22-23. So for preparedness, we have given that money as well. So allocation for Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which was 64,000, has gone to 86,606. So I don't think we should, think that it has come down. It is a 35% increase. Over and above that, 22-23 in the BUE, one point that I would want to highlight, 546 crore, particularly for the references that Sri Amar Patnaik ji, 5,846 under PM Abhim, Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission, scheme which is going to develop capacities in health systems and institutions for responding effectively to the current pandemic, and God forbid if there is any future pandemic as well. So, sir, the other issue about food subsidy and fertilizer subsidy. Quite a few members spoke about it. I just want to quickly give a picture. Fertilizer subsidy, sir. BE of 21-22, we gave 79,530 crores. In the RE of 21-22, this amount was increased to 1.4 lakh crores, representing an increase of over 75% between the RE and BE itself, BE and RE itself in the current year. And that is because, as you know, global fertilizer prices have gone up. Government of India imports a large quantity of our fertilizers, and in this case, in spite of the prices have gone up so much, we still imported it, and we have no choice but to import it. But we made sure that that increased global price of fertilizers are not shifted on to the farmers. The government has borne that cost, and the farmers have got the fertilizers, as always, at the price at which they bought last year or the year before. So that shows that the government has been receptive to developments outside and understanding the issues here in the ground. Sir, food subsidy allocation, PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, and I also want to highlight the allocation for food subsidy is 2.86 lakh crores. This is higher because, and I'm